Good Saturday evening to you. I'm 10 Tampa Bay meteorologist Natalie Ferrari. We are your hurricane headquarters, and we have been getting new data just in from the National Hurricane Center within the past hour. Several rounds of activity we've been watching across the tropics. Thankfully, those areas of disturbed weather in the Atlantic, not concerned about one bit. And yes, we do have a Hurricane Franklin heading towards Bermuda early next week. Not worried about that one as well. But the big story for us here locally is going to be this one right here that we will track detail by detail, hour by hour for you as we go through the rest of the weekend and into next week, because it is officially an organized system. We have a closed low. We do have Tropical Depression 10 on the map. This is something that is going to be sticking around through the weekend. That stationary status. This is barely moving right along the Yucatan Channel, so right between Cancun and western Cuba. The center is positioned just right here. And over the last several scans, we have seen just that convection continue to fire up all through to the east of it and even down towards the south and north of the center of this system, continuing to see them kind of bubble up, reform, and then kind of dwindle down. That pattern looking to continue for the next 24 to possibly near 36 hours. We're talking about a nearly stationary system, which in that time window could allow it, that wind speed, to start to bump up, get a little stronger, and take it to that tropical storm status. So I do think by the end of the weekend, we could actually be dealing with a named storm, a tropical storm, and that would be Idalia. That would be the next name on the list. You would actually see it kind of circles around itself over the next 24 hours. Then it actually gets a little bit of forward momentum to the north, right out of the Yucatan Peninsula by Monday. Through Monday afternoon and evening, we are now entering those warm Gulf waters in the Gulf of Mexico. And the National Hurricane Center is now thinking not only could this strengthen to a tropical storm status through Tuesday, but possibly by Tuesday night, a low-end Category 1 hurricane. You need 74-mile-per-hour winds or higher to get it to a hurricane status. We may briefly touch that 75-mile-per-hour wind speed, which would actually help to get it to that Category 1 status before drifting its way towards the northeastern portions of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this is something very important to note. This track does not represent areas of impact. This track represents where the center of that storm could fall. So it could be as far west of that track, so we're talking the Panhandle, or as far east, which is right there in the Tampa Bay area, right over Pinellas County. So that is basically where that track can toggle to as we go through the next couple of days. Do not follow directly down the center. It could be on either side. That is how that track does basically work and how it does have that wide spread once you do get several days out. And you'll see that as it continues to track its way through the southeastern portions of the United States, by the middle of next week, it will weaken out towards this east coast as it does so. But there has been quite a bit of a widespread as far as how far either to the east or to the west the center of this system could actually develop. And you'll notice over the next couple of days, we'll be seeing these fine-tuned. We'll see them kind of start to cluster a little closer and closer together as far as how wide that spread is. But let me show you some of our computer models. Basically why one is saying the Panhandle, one is a little bit closer to the Nature Coast or the Big Bend area. Well, here's what's going on. We have our European model. This one has been picking up on this cluster of moisture for days now, and it is agreeing that right over Cancun, right in that Yucatan Channel, we're not going to have a whole lot of momentum. We're not going to have a whole lot of movement, which could help this system go from a tropical depression to a tropical storm. So that is an agreement with that cone. You'll notice how it continues to drive its way through the eastern portions of the Gulf of Mexico through Monday, really into the Monday night and into Tuesday. Ahead of it, that's when we can start to feel some of those impacts. That outer flow around anything tropical in the Gulf of Mexico will help to throw some increased winds along the coast, and of course some of those rain bands and some of those heavier downpours. And that can start as early as Monday night going into Tuesday. But notice the center of it staying over the Gulf of Mexico and trying to push up towards that Big Bend region, maybe around Cedar Key, or looking a little bit closer to the eastern half of the Panhandle. But right in that region, the center is where it's wanting to drift off to in this particular model. And this one has actually been pretty consistent with that placement and that timing. Let me take you to the GFS, because this one has been changing on us back and forth over the past couple of runs. It has a similar aspect as far as Sunday and into early Monday, wanting to stay right over that Yucatan Channel, but then it does push off a little bit quicker as it makes its way through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and it actually wants to go just a tad bit more to the west, and that would actually take it more into the Panhandle. The further west you have the center, The lower amount of impacts we would notice here immediately in the Tampa Bay area. I do think we'll still get quite a bit of those breezy winds and those bands of rain moving through, but it also brings the system up towards the coast a little quicker, which means you don't have a whole lot of time to throw water into the Tampa Bay area, meaning storm surge. That would be less of a concern with that part of the forecast. Again, that will continue to change, but that's kind of what we're looking at with some of the latest models. European also showing the bulk of the heaviest rain with the system, likely going to be sitting right around the eastern half of the center of that storm, but it will be over the Gulf of Mexico. However, right along the coast, we have a few things going on. If a system just sits right off the west coast of Florida and drives up to the north, you've got quite a bit of that heavy rain associated with it that will impact our coastal regions the most. We also will have some storm surge impacting the coastal areas, especially the barrier islands. That looks like that's where things could be the more problematic, especially for the bulk of that storm surge concern. 3 to 5 feet will be possible primarily along those barrier islands, but that would be at high tide, which we're going to have a few rounds of that, a few hours of high tide because we have a full moon by the middle of the week. So that 3 to 5 foot storm surge, that won't be for all up and down the immediate coast for everyone. That's going to be in some spots more so than others that will feel that impact. But that'll be the main concern that we would have to watch for anything that would be trying to drive some of that water up along the immediate coast, depending again just how far off the coast the center of that system would brush by. Rainfall totals, those are going to be a wide spread because I do think the heaviest rain will try to trickle right along the immediate coast. That's where we could see 5-6 inches or more from this entire event. The further inland you go, that's where things will be a little bit closer to 3, maybe 4 inches of rainfall, which we can actually take. We can handle that because we are dealing with a severe to extreme drought along parts of the immediate coast. So our soil is kind of ready for that amount of water. But we will be talking about really keeping a very close eye on tropical impacts, either from a tropical storm, a strengthening tropical storm, or possibly now maybe a low-end Cat 1 hurricane, which again could still be something very serious that we'd have to watch out for. Impacts when it comes to rain and to that wind, we would see some of those impacts start to kind of brush up on the southern counties as early as Monday night going into Tuesday. The bulk of parts of west central Florida could see that Tuesday and into Wednesday. So those are a lot of details we're still fine-tuning. Impacts, that has a little bit of a lower confidence because it really is going to depend just how far off the immediate coast we would see that center of circulation, as well as how quickly the storm moves to see if it is able to actually make it to a stronger tropical storm or a low-end hurricane. So we'll be fine-tuning every single bit of this forecast for you as we go through the next several days. As mentioned, the next name on the list is Idalia, and that is likely what we're going to be talking about. If it's not later tonight, it for sure will be through your Sunday forecast tomorrow. So we'll be here live once again at 8:30 tonight, and of course over on 10 Tampa Bay on TV at 11 o'clock with the latest updates on the tropics. We've got everything you need to know here at 10 Tampa Bay.